Hi guys, my name is Elder and I'm here again with another video. This one we're gonna talk about the next project for privacy that I have in mind. Just one really quick thing. Every project that I'm showing you here on this introduction series, I already developed a prototype before. Okay, so it's already active. I didn't share yet because I don't think it's a well-written code. I did it to work. It's not well coded. So my idea now is now on YouTube. Every single project we're gonna redo the code. I'm gonna publish a clean code on GitHub so anyone can understand easily and use these products. Okay. Also, before we start, I want to thank the OPSEC, Protect Your Identity and Privacy Facebook group and the Bash programming group also for inviting me, for being an admin there. So I really want to thank you those guys, and I'm gonna put the links below so you can join those groups if you are interested on these topics. So let's start. The next project, it's one that I really like, and it's called Privrouter. Okay, so Privrouter it's supposed to be a privacy focused routing appliance. So the idea is really simple. We have a device, it has to be a Linux device that will be running our bash script, that is Privrouter. Okay, I really like this project because it's a small project, like there is maybe 400 lines of bash coding, not more than that, and it has a huge impact on privacy. Like, it handles one of the most complex operations when you want to get privacy, which is the networking side of things. It handles it for you. So let's start talking about Privrouter. So it has some key concepts that I want you to get used to it, because we need to create configuration files in order to be able to apply those concepts. Okay, it really shines its power when you use virtual machines. If you care about privacy, it's instinctively you have to use virtual machines. There is, it's a really important and key concept in privacy. And let's say you have a host, so your laptop, and you have there 20 virtual machines. Let's say you connect the Raspberry Pi 0W, which is the same device that I did the previous video about eComs. That is also going to be running a Privrouter. And automatically, your machines, it handles the traffic from all of your virtual machines. So your host doesn't have any communications at layer 3 of the OSI model. So no communications, it's not addressable via an IP network. Only the layer 2 communications are going there. So your network traffic, IP traffic, goes directly from your VM to the Privrouter device. Okay. So let's talk about some key concepts I really like this project. Well, there is something called a gateway, or gateways. Okay. Now, gateways in Privrouter is basically your upstream link to the internet. Most common for most people will be their internet service provider, so your contract that you have with your ISP, your home router. Okay. But with Privrouter, you can have multiple ones if your physical board supports it. Now, the Pi 0W has something really cool, which is his Wi-Fi chip. You can actually use it as a two virtual Wi-Fi chips. So you can be connected to two different Wi-Fi networks on the Pi 0 via the Wi-Fi. Okay, and so that gives you two gateways, two internet connections, because one Wi-Fi could be connected to your home Wi-Fi, and the other virtual Wi-Fi interface could be connected to a public coffee, for example. That will give you two branches, two internet connections that you can then set up with Privrouter, and then you can manage your traffic flow. So a gateway is basically an internet connection. Okay, it will have some configurations, like you would be able to configure a DHCP. So this is basically the dynamic host configuration protocol. If you have the DHCP there, Privrouter will basically use the DHCP to get the information. If you set this equal to no, you can specify statically IPs if you want to. Okay. You will also have another parameter called a net if name. This is basically the network interface name that will be used to connect through to the internet. Okay, so for example, on the Pi 0 we have one physical Wi-Fi. Okay, we can set it up as being two virtual ones, so we have now two network interfaces there. You have the WLAN 0, which is the first one, and the WLAN 1, which is the second one. And then, for example, you could say, okay, this gateway is gonna use DHCP, yes, it's gonna go over WLAN 0, and you're gonna have a type also. A type of a gateway is basically two types, so it could be Wi-Fi or Ether for Ethernet, okay? So it tells Privrouter, okay, is this a Wi-Fi network or is this a cable connection, basically. If it is Wi-Fi, you're gonna need to provide two more parameters, and you might guess the SSID of the network, and then the password for that SSID, okay? So that's the basic parameters that you have set up when you set up a gateway, okay? Then we're gonna have something called a tunnel. So a tunnel, you can think of it as being a way to basically trying to obfuscate your first hop, your first gateway, okay? We're gonna have multiple types, so I'm gonna list the types here that we can set up with Privrouter. So the first one is gonna be a VPN, so that's the most common, okay? You could set up a VPN with Privrouter, and it only accepts OpenVPN configuration file, so an OVPN file, okay? Most of the VPN providers will provide you with that. You will have an option for most providers to download a OVPN configuration file. The next type we're going to have is Tor, and we're going to have what is called a null tunnel. I did not add a support for I2P networks yet, but that's later something that we can add, okay? For example, null. Well, the null is basically just a keyword to say that you don't want to use a tunnel. Sometimes you don't want to obfuscate anything, you want to use your real IP. So that's a null tunnel, will not interfere in anything, will just connect to the gateway. Now, in case you select a tunnel type of being VPN, you have to select two more parameters, you have to define two more parameters. The first is the OVPN, okay, path. This is the path for the file containing the OVPN file, okay, so the configuration file. So Privrouter can load it and it will parse it, some settings to make sure that it can manage the routes, because what happens when you download a OVPN file from your VPN provider is that they try to push all routes from the server. So when you connect, the server decides your routes, and basically what they have is like something like 0.0.0.0.0/0. So they basically say, okay, all the traffic will be routed through the VPN. That's not what we want here, because we want to have really defined traffic flows. We have to be able to route accordingly our Privrouter configuration. So we're gonna delete that. And also, if your OVPN file needs like credentials to connect, you have to put it in a auth file. And you define the auth path pointing to the auth file. Auth file will only contain the first line the username and the second line the password, okay? It's all that it needs. So that's the tunnels. It's basically the next hop after the gateway. Okay, so then we're gonna have another key concept called networks. And this you might be more familiar now. This is simply a VLAN, okay? By default, Privrouter will isolate all VLANs, but you can change this behavior if you, for some reason, want to have some inter-VLAN communication. One option that you have to define on the network side is the VLAN ID, okay? This has to be different always. The next parameter that we're gonna have is isolated, okay? This will tell basically, should I isolate this network? So network isolation. By default it is yes, but if you want to not isolate, you have to set it equal to no. And the third, which we're gonna have, is gonna be the so the IP in a CIDR format. Okay. Oops. So you have to define the IP in the CIDR format for that network. So for example, makes sense, I like to use this format. Like if this VLAN has the ID of 2, for example, I like to say, okay, so the IP CIDR of this network is going to be 10.0.2.254/24, okay? So it basically already gives me the subnet mask, the IP address also in one option. So my VMs will have to have an IP on this range, okay, on this network. Also, we're gonna have an option to decide if we want to use the HCP or not. Okay, enable the HCP. Enable the HCP. Okay, this is, for example, if you want your VMs to dynamically get an IP address from a DHCP sub on the Privrouter, you have to set this to yes. Then what is called a circuit. What I call the circuits. Okay, and basically the whole magic happens right here on the circuits. So basically here you're gonna define how we want to link everything. So how this is gonna work? You have a network. Then on a network you have to say, okay, this network, through each gateway should it go? Its connection should it go? From my home router or from that public Wi-Fi coffee? And then after that you can also say, okay, and should I use a VPN there, or should it go over Tor? Should it not go over Tor, nor a VPN? So you can define all of these. You can create your own circuit, which is pretty powerful. So a circuit, you will have to define a timeout. So tries to build that circuit. If it fails in a certain number of seconds, it's gonna basically skip that circuit or abort the whole Privrouter. You're gonna have also an option called on error. Okay, and you're gonna have to put either skip it or abort. Okay, so if it fails to build this circuit, maybe it's a crucial circuit that if it fails, you cannot even use Privrouter. So in that case, you would abort the Privrouter software, for example, if it is a really important one. Or maybe if it fails, there is no problem, just skip it and go to the next one that it has on the list. So we're also gonna have here a abort, also gonna have a retry. So if it fails, retry again. And we're also gonna have another parameter called max retry to define how many times should retry after failure. So by default, we can set it to 3, okay? So it tries to connect 3 times. If it fails 3 times with a timeout, then skip it or abort, okay? Then we're gonna have an option, pretty useful, it's enabled. Should this circuit be enabled, okay? Let's say you are at home and you have your home circuit, which pretty simple, you have a network. Then it should go through the gateway that connects to your home router, and then it should go for a tunnel type of null because you don't want to obfuscate anything. So that's your circuit, and you can call it home, okay? But if you are not at home, if you are at work, this circuit will fail because the home Wi-Fi is not available, so the gateway will fail to connect, and it's gonna go into the timeout and it's gonna skip it. But that takes time, and will slow down the Privrouter booting process. So what you can do is that you can set it enable to false when you are out of home, so it doesn't even try to do this. And when you reach home, you enable again the circuit, okay? If the circuit is not built, the virtual machine will not have internet connection. So it has built-in kill switches, okay? So don't worry. Another parameter, obviously, now we're gonna start building. So we're gonna say a network, then a tunnel, and then a gateway. So this is the actual linking right here. So here we are actually saying how should the traffic flow. So basically the traffic flow is like this. You have your VM, connects to your Privrouter device, which is a physical separate device from your machine laptop. And there you're gonna have the Gov network. For example, you're gonna have the network, right? then Privrouter knows that, okay, that should go through my home internet service provider, okay, and that will also go through a null tunnel. And the traffic flow is literally this. Your VM traffic goes to the Gov network, goes then through your home router, and then it doesn't go through any tunnel because it's null. Imagine that you have 20. This is really useful. You can shape your traffic as you want, as many configurations you create. You can have as many networks as you want, as many tunnels or VPNs or Tor instances that as you want. You can have as many gateways as it is physically possible. If you buy a board that has like 4 Ethernet interfaces, you could define all 4 being gateways. Or if you use a laptop, let's say a Linux system, and you plug it like 5 Wi-Fi adapters, you could use all Wi-Fi adapters as gateways. Okay, so that's really cool. Like, you can control the traffic flow. That's the whole idea of Privrouter. Okay, we're also gonna have something called Rulesets that I'm gonna put here, but basically are the firewall rules. So if you want to apply a firewall rule to the network, you would have a rule set. Basically defines what are the firewall rules for that network. You can have like a file, a rule set file saying rules just for browsing. And if you think for browsing, what do you need? You can be really like strict and say, deny any incoming traffic, any outgoing traffic, any forwarding traffic, deny everything. Only allow 53 to a specific IP, for example, for DNS. Only allow NTP for time synchronization. Only allow HTTP and HTTPS, because for browsing that's all you need. Okay, only those ports, and only those ports will be available on that network, on that virtual machine. So you don't even need to set up a firewall here, although I recommend. So let's give a more clean example now how it works. So let's draw something so you understand a little bit better. Let's say you have the internet. So we have the internet here, okay? Let's set up our gateways, our previous example. So we're gonna have, ISP gateway, okay? This is your home router Wi-Fi, normal internet connection. And then you might have another gateway like a public coffee. I'm gonna say pub gateway. And if your port even supports another gateway, another connection, internet connection, you might have, let's say, an hotspot, which is the most anonymous way of easy way of getting a good privacy advantage. So you buy an hotspot with cash, you buy a prepaid SIM card if you can on your zone, on your area where you live, also with cash, and then you use it. So I'm gonna call hot gateway for hotspot. Okay, so you have your gateways, and each gateway is going to have a configuration file here with these parameters, okay? Then I'm going to create some tunnel configurations also. So let's say I want a null tunnel. So this is a tunnel that doesn't do anything. It's just there. And I say null turn for tunnel, okay? Let's say I want to use a public VPN, like that is a public free VPN, like the Proton VPN. I'm gonna call PRT VPN. VPN. It is also a tunnel, okay? Because it's the VPN type, but it is also a tunnel. Let's say that I have a VPN configuration file for mulvad, which is a pretty good privacy respecting VPN. So I'm gonna call mul for mulvad VPN. And also create another tunnel configuration file for Tor. I want to also have a Tor instance running. Torton. So I have my tunnels, I have my gateways. Now I'm gonna create my networks that will be linked to my virtual machines. Let's say a Gov network. GovNet. This is for government, related stuff, so I'm not trying to hide anything here. It's just a normal gateway, okay? Then I might have a network just for just for working, for example. I don't want the work companies know my real IP address, but also it doesn't need a lot of obfuscation, right? I just don't want them to know my real IP, so you could use something like a basic Proton public VPN profile for that. I might have a work net. I might have a DevNet for developing software, so a DevNet. Oops, we put like this. Now let's say that you have virtual machines that you use for crypto, so for crypto wallets. And so we create a network here on Privrouter. I'm gonna call it CryptoNet. CryptoNet. Let's say a webnet for stuff there. I don't know. Let's say that you want to create a persona here on the webnet for, you know, accessing Reddit and something that you don't want to be tracked. You don't want that to be linked to you. Okay. We have these networks configured. We have these gateways configured. And we have these tunnels configured. Now, the circuits is what it links everything. So that's the magic that Privrouter does. So now, let's say that you have a virtual machine. Okay, let's say that you have a virtual machine to basically accessing your bank. Again, how you would do it? You're gonna link that VM tap device to the GovNet here. Okay, and Privrouter knows because it sees that the GovNet is on a circuit file, and it knows, okay, GovNet, all traffic coming in this GovNet network, which is a traffic on that VM for the banking, is gonna go forcibly through my ASP gateway because I want to use my identified and router. I don't want to hide anything, and should go through a null tunnel and then should access the internet. So it will go in this way. Now, the worknet, again, I don't need a lot of privacy there, like my work company knows my work, but I don't want the work company, if you work from home, and let's say that you don't want your work company to know your real IP address. So you're gonna use a free VPN because you are not even caring about the data, no, anything, you just want to spoof your IP from your work company. So the worknet probably should go through the public will go through your real ISP gateway, okay, and then goes to the Proton VPN, which has free profiles, and then goes to your work through the internet, okay. So your work sees the Proton VPN IP address. Your banks, because it's null, sees your gateway's IP address, your real home IP address. DevNet. Let's say you are developing software, and let's say there is a really it's a really sensitive software and you don't want it to be tracked. Maybe then it should go a public gateway, so a coffee or something like this, and then should go through the MoveOut VPN to the internet, GitHub, whatever. For example, CryptoNet really needs to be anonymous. So, and you see there is not linkability here. For example, the MoveOut VPN can see, okay, a guy connects from a public coffee IP address and connects from another spot that is not linked to you anyways. None of both are linked to you, so MoveOut VPN itself doesn't get a lot of information. The ISP, like the null tunnel, is nothing, so the ISP knows that you are going through a public VPN, but then you are just accessing your work, so you have to think in every kind of connections what they can get out of it, okay? And then you can plan your circuit like you want, but this is really powerful. It's a simple device like the Raspberry Pi, yes, so it has limited capabilities, okay, but for a little bit more money you could buy, you know, a Raspberry Pi actually model like 3 or 4 that has multiple USBs. You can connect as many as you want, Ethernet adapters, use as many gateways as you want, or Wi-Fi adapters, and you can create your own mini router, really powerful. You can control every single flow. Okay, so how does Privrouter passes all of these networks? You could have as many as you want. How does it all of this passes to your host machine via Privrouter? So it depends on the device you use. I configured to be used on a Raspberry Pi Zero W. So the way that I found is that the Pi Zero W doesn't have like an Ethernet adapter, so I use the actual micro USB port as an Ethernet gadget. So when you connect the USB on your computer, you actually see an Ethernet interface. And that USB connection, I pass all the VLANs to the host computer. And then the host computer will also be running a Privrouter package there to recognize and read this information and automatically set up your network interfaces needed for your VMs. Pretty cool. So you're gonna have like a, say, passes all the VLANs. And so this is your host. Okay. Passes all the VLANs there. It sets up the VLANs for you for your virtual machine. So only thing you have to do is just put up the virtual machine. Okay. So advantages of using Privrouter. Well, the most biggest one is that your computer, your host, is not addressable via an IP network. So no layer 3 connectivity on hosts, only to the virtual machines. So because of this, your host always is offline. Most always. So being offline means that it's harder to attack. So the way that it communicates only at layer 2 is basically it uses the Linux bridges to basically redirect the traffic from Privrouter to your VMs directly. Okay. Linux bridges redirect the traffic to VMs. So the advantages also is that your routing table on your host is completely empty, pretty much. Okay. Another thing is, so it uses the bridges, and on the host we're gonna create what is called a tap device, and then we set the master of those tap devices to the correct bridge. So for each network you create on Privrouter, on your host you're gonna have a bridge at layer 2 only. Okay. Now the tap devices master that bridge, so automatically they are on the network. And also we can set up NIC isolation, so the tap devices will always be isolated, so they cannot follow traffic from one NIC to another. Gate to VMs. Another advantage is that because all of your routing and VPN and gateway stuff, all of your networking stuff that connects to the internet is running on a separate device, if the device gets infected, it does not affect your host computer. So it's a separate device, which is a Raspberry Pi Zero W in this case, separate device, handles networking. When we start coding this project, I'm going to show to you how you should connect to your laptop also, so we can get some security benefits also there. And also really cool thing is that it has persistent, right? So it just needs one-time setup. After we have all these configurations, it remembers and it automatically loads everything into place. So basically one-time setup. So the first time takes a little bit more because you have to set up these definitions so Privrouter can know. And then one-time setup, and then it's persistent. So then persistent. Okay, so now let's talk about the VM use case. Let's give examples. So I'm going to create, let's say, a gov VM. So I'm going to call gov1. Okay. This virtual machine I'm going to connect the NIC to the govnet of Privrouter. Okay. So the traffic goes out govnet, ISP, no internet. So for example, say handles gov stuff like banking, stuff that you want them to know that it's you, okay? Social security, platform, right? Finances, so this VM or this network is going to be used for something, like I said, use for something that you want to know it's you. Okay? Since you're not hiding anything here. Just normal behavior. Okay? That's the gov1. Boom, 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 boom. So basically the govnet is for connections that goes through my home ISP and then without any kind of modification to the internet, okay? But let's say now you have, like I said before, you have a cryptonet that goes through the hotspot that goes over Tor and then goes to the internet. And the webnet goes through the hotspot and then goes through the mobile VPN and goes to through the internet. So the most anonymous here, it's this one, the crypto, because it goes through an hotspot that you buy with cash, a SIM card that you also buy with cash for a month plan, and then it goes over Tor on top of that, and then goes to wherever you want to go. So let's create a VM for that use case. I'm gonna call it mon01, and it's gonna go through a cryptonet. So boom, 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 boom. Well, keep in mind that I'm only linking a VM to a network. You could have as many VMs as you want on the same network, okay? So for Monero, actually having only one Monero wallet is not enough to be anonymous, so we have to actually create a chain of them. I can explain that in a later video, but just for the sake of explanations here, I'm just linking a VM to a network, okay? So it's simpler to simplify. So this VM is supposed to handle all crypto operations, okay? So it's going to handle all crypto currency operations, okay? And like I said, I only recommend you having a single VM for a single wallet, a cold wallet, okay? Then I'm gonna show you a way that you can do transactions in a safe way, okay? So not even the transactions can be tracked. So use this network for something that you want really the most level of privacy, okay? So use this network, not the VM, the network, okay? So the cryptonet for getting good privacy. Of course, there is way more aspects. Just routing your traffic through the cryptonet doesn't make you anonymous. You have to have good habits and you have to know how to use the browser. But it's a good starting point. Then let's say that you are working from home and they give you a VPN profile to connect, and but you don't want to use your real machine to do that. You want to create a VM and then use that VM for the work, and you connect through that VM. Totally possible. Or you can just pass your VPN file to the Privrouter configuration and it will create a tunnel for you. Either way will work. So we have a work machine, and this one probably is going to be a Windows 10 machine, okay? Because most companies require you running a Windows 10 with a lot of more requirements. So this will go through the worknet, which is this one that goes through your ISP and then to the public Proton VPN and then to the internet. So that's the worknet. I'm just giving you, use cases for this. It's going to really depend of what you need and how you want to use them. But the idea is to give you a starting point so you can then create your own. Okay. So the work, pretty simple, no secrets. Do your work. So even if it gets compromised, your other VMs do not pass to your work VM, which is a good thing, or virtual machines. Okay. Oops, do your work without revealing your IP. Okay. Your IP, because they see the Proton VPN IP, and also you are preventing them from actually trying to scan your network, right, or doing something a little bit more shady. If they have access to this machine, they only have access to a machine that only has work. Nothing about you is in here. It's just the work stuff. So it's isolated. So prevent access to your stuff, to your other stuff, right? Like this. And that's a use case. Now we have more to networks here. Development, I think I don't need to do again. You get the idea. You can have multiple development machines. It can be, developing public software that you don't need any protection, so just go through a public one, simple one. If it's a really sensitive software, you might want to use to go over a better route or even Tor. Depends on you. And the webnet, which is for searching something that you don't want to be linkable back to you. Okay, so you might have multiple virtual machines, and you are using a technique that I learned on the Rob Raxman's Tech channel. It is pretty good. It's the browser isolation. So basically, you dedicate a browser just for a goal, okay, a task. So let me put web 01. Goes to the webnet. Hotspot, mobile, internet. Webnet. Surfing. Whatever, shopping. Well, shopping anonymously, it's really hard. I don't really recommend doing it. But it is possible, but for shopping, I think you can use your real identity, real IP. I think there is no problem with that. But for surfing, doing stuff, again, that you want to protect your privacy. Okay. This might look a little bit, criminal stuff. This has nothing to do with this. This is a warning. Okay, this is not incentivizing any kind of criminal activity. This is just for getting privacy, something that the internet does not allow you to, especially nowadays, with every single platform trying to basically identify you. It is crazy. It's like, if you go to a website, it is like walking in some place and having someone checking your ID always. That's really annoying. That's another use case. Well, I hope you get the idea, guys, of Privrouter. It's a pretty powerful software that we are going to do that will allow us to do this. It's not complex in a sense that it's not big. It's going to be a small bash script. I'm going to try to explain in every detail, every line, so you can understand. Even if you don't understand the code, you understand me talking what it's doing, okay, and that's important. And that's it. That's Privrouter, one of my favorite projects. Well, I hope you liked, guys. The next video we are going to talk about pre-chains, which is a little bit more crazier. Like, you would be able to basically chain VPNs on top of VPNs and even use Tor. So that is more extreme. Later I want to do a module for Privrouter, so we can implement here as a type, like a chain type, that would implement that technology on Privrouter, so you don't need to have that technology in a separate program. Might be do something that we can do later. At the moment it's not implemented, but I might think in a way of doing that. But that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I see you on the next one. Bye.